Hello and welcome to another episode of the Tampa Bay Arts Passport Podcast. I'm very excited for today's episode. It is in partnership with Off Central Players and their new Think Inside the Box series. Today's conversation is with Janice Creneti, who is doing her one-woman solo show, My Year of Saying No, later this month, April 25th to May 3rd at the Off Central Players. We're going to dive into where the show came from, where that amazing title comes from, and just what is it like to collectively process the pandemic and how she's using arts and theater making to not just help heal herself, but anyone she comes in contact with. So enjoy this episode. All right, Janice, thank you so much for coming on today.
Yeah, it's my pleasure.
I'm so excited to talk about your one-woman show, My Year of Saying No. Let's just start real easy. Can you tell me a little bit about the show? What can folks expect? And then we'll dive into where it came from and all those fun things. But
Sure.
yeah, just tell us about the show.
Yeah, so it is, it's the story of the first year of COVID, and all the ways that shifted what was going on in my life. I was living life at 90 miles an hour. COVID brought things to a grinding halt, at least in terms of being inside of the four walls of my house, right? Couldn't go anywhere. And that stillness caused me to start to do a lot of reflecting about what was and was not working in my life. And I came to the conclusion that most things in my life were not working, and the only person who could do anything about that was me. So it was the journey to begin to reshape a life that I wanted to live.
Was there a specific moment or instance that kind of made you realize that?
I think the most dramatic was so, you sort of know how things rolled out with, the pandemic here in Florida. And I was working for the school system when this started. And of course, we ended up going virtual for about 3 months. And then at the end of the school year, things quickly were decided that nope, we're in Florida. We're going to open the doors. During this time, I was also diagnosed as being immunocompromised. I'd been this incredibly healthy person my whole life, never had any health issues. And then I was told, you got to come back to the office. And the job that I was doing, I had been traveling all over the state of Florida to do the work, but even though they were opening schools back up, they weren't letting staff people travel. So I was just, everything I did on Zoom. I was on Zoom all day long. They're like, you got to come back to the office. And I'm like, come back to the office so I just still sit in front of a computer and Zoom all day long, right? Like I can still do that from home, right? So for the first time in my life, I was confronted with this notion of, okay, like this could actually kill me. Like if I go back and like, am I really willing to die for this job?
Yeah.
No. Hell no, in fact. As much as I love the job. It was the first time I think, because I'd always been one of these people that had worked in the school system since I was 22 years old. I'm very much a change agent, want to make a difference. And in the school system, you sort of get, martyrdom is encouraged, not in a good way. So it's very easy to fall into that trap. And so I was a giver, and then I was an over-giver. And I realized it was finally time to think about myself and take a stand for my own life.
Which I think is, one, such a hard thing to do. Because it's not really how a lot of us were born and raised to think, right? To put yourself first, and that saying no is okay.
Right.
So walk me through what that journey was like and just the power that came from putting yourself first.
So I think one of the things that I discovered was that it was a slippery slope in a good way. Like every no made the next one a little bit easier. So, I decided I'm not going back to work. I applied for a work from home accommodation under the Americans with Disabilities Act, which I had been working for a grant that was funded from that like for years. But the idea that I would ever like use those same laws for myself, no. But I did, and it was accepted. And when I was working for the Exceptional Student Education Department, it was kind of hard for them to thumb their nose at the ADA Act, so that was sort of convenient. But yeah, so I did that, and it's like, oh, gee, well, the sun still comes up the next day. Look at that. And so then sort of with each successive no, I realized, okay, wow, there's sort of the phrase that you teach people how to treat you, right? And so it was like, okay, well, I need to retrain people how to treat me. Like
Mhm.
I'm not going to be the sacrificial lamb
Yeah.
anymore. Um, and again, that's often not popular, especially when
Mhm.
people have been benefiting from you being in that position.
Yeah.
But I realized there was plenty of room to negotiate me still giving,
Mm.
generously, while also having boundaries that I honored for myself.
Mm. Which is so hard in a professional workspace. I mean, boundaries are hard, period, anytime, but especially when you're just so used to this is how it's been operating.
Right.
So you took that experience and you've now crafted it into a one woman theatrical experience show. Talk to me a little bit about that because I hesitate to even call it just like a show. But tell me about that a little bit and how that, what made you think, oh, this is something that others might want to hear about.
So for years, I had sort of always, because I've been acting since I was 16. So for years, I'd had sort of in the back of my mind, oh, maybe someday I'll do a one woman show. And then I had the chance to perform a couple of one woman shows where I played somebody else, written by somebody else. And so I had the back of my mind, well, maybe I'll actually do an autobiographical one someday. Um, and when the pandemic happened, of course, all the theaters closed down, so in-person theater stopped. And then I got this diagnosis. And then as theaters were starting to open back up again, so the theater that I was involved with, we'd done a show on Zoom that they were now going to do in person, and I was so excited. But there were all these question marks. My doctors were still trying to figure out what was going on. I'm like, is it safe for me? They're like, we can't say. And then my theater decided to ditch the mask mandates, and I was like,
Mm.
I can't. I just can't.
Yeah.
So while all this was happening, Power Stories Theater, which I've been working with for years, they decided they were going to do something called the Voices of Women Theater Festival. And they had released a call for submissions for that. And at the time, it was going to overlap with this other show that I was supposed to be doing in person. I'm like, oh, I just won't have time for that. And then all of a sudden, things with that other show came crashing. I realized I can't do that. And so that happened about a week away from the submission deadline
Wow.
for Power Stories. And I was like, well, and another thing that sort of happened along that line was that I'd met up with a good friend of mine, and this was a sort of COVID's first year was kind of coming to a close, and we were sort of talking about everything we'd learned. And I just happened to say to her, it's been my year of saying no. And she's like, oh my God, that's a great title for a book. And so then when I was like, maybe I will submit a show. And I was like, maybe my year of saying no is actually a play
Mm.
and not a book. Maybe it'll be a book someday. I don't know. And so I just decided to go for it, and I pounded out a story. Really, it wasn't a script at that point; it was a story in about 4 days, and I submitted it. And then I got the notification that it was accepted, and I was like, oh, "Yay! Shit!
Now I gotta do
Now
it.
I've got to figure this thing out." It was really important to me that it be a performance that I could really enjoy.
Mm.
And I really do. I mean, I'm a storyteller, but I really love a play. I really love the characters and things like that. And I happen to, for once, be blessed by the Facebook algorithm. And I came across this woman who runs an organization called Soaring Solo, and she coaches solo theater
Mm.
artists. And she was the one who really helped me take the story and begin to shape it into a play,
Mm.
and helped me uncover all of the characters, because I play 20 characters
Wow.
in the solo show. And she was the first person to say to me, patriarchy is a character. Guilt's a character. Perfection's a character.
Mm.
Depression's a character. And she would take me through processes and writing exercises to find the voices of it. She's like, so if Zoom was a character, what would Zoom say?
Mm.
And that was it was a really gratifying creative experience, actually, to do that exploration. But And so I discovered that, wow, all these voices are in fact in my head, and they
Mm-hmm.
all have their own dialogue and catchphrases, and like we learn in the theater to sort of what's the motivation behind the character, what's the character want, that I was able to find all that.
Mm.
And the beauty of doing that was that not only did it turn this story really into a play that I really enjoy performing, but it's made it so much easier for me to recognize those voices now when they show
Mm.
up, which puts me in a much better position to say, I'm going to let that voice have a say right now, or I'm not going to let that voice have a say right now,
Mm-hmm.
and just sort of get back in the driver's seat of my own life.
Yeah. So this is not just like Janice talking to us for 90 minutes. This is a fully realized, there's characters. How so I know you're about to present this at Off Central
Hmm.
later this month as part of their new Inside the Box series.
Right.
But talk to me a little bit about going from Power Stories and that Voices of Women festival to like what other development it's kind of been in the journey that you've kind of like tweaked it and gone on with it.
Sure. So the very first time that I did it at Power Stories, I think the runtime was about 80 minutes, which was fine. But I had a sense that I wanted to get it to like a tight 60.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I had that sense, and then I started to do fringe festivals where I had to get it to a tight 60. So I did Tampa Fringe, I did Orlando Fringe, I done Squeaky Wheel Fringe in Sarasota recently, and I took it to the LA Women's Theater Festival. I took it to the Santa Monica Fringe Festival, and each of those festivals was an opportunity, first of all, to work on the dialogue and work on the script and get it really tight. The very first time that I did it, I included everything that I thought was essential. But one of the
Mm.
keys to being a storyteller is figuring out, well, what's essential for the audience, and what can I let go of that may not be so essential for helping them, not only moving the story along, but helping them really experience what I want them to experience from
Mm-hmm.
the story. Uh, so there was a lot of editing and dialogue, and uh, Jenna Jane's an artist that I work with a lot too. She talks about the phrase "kill the darlings" that writers always talk about. So there was definitely some killing of the darlings, um, and but it was fascinating because what I discovered was that a couple things happened as I performed it. As I performed it, first of all, I could really clearly feel what dialogue was critical and what dialogue
Mm.
wasn't. But I also got even more clear on the way that the characters talked.
Mm.
So it really helped me find, it's like, oh, the character wouldn't say this phrase this way, they would say it that way. And so every time I performed it, I sort of got more connected to the heart of each character. Um, I tightened the runtime down to now it's under 60 minutes. And I also, after I did it, maybe 4 times, I added a multimedia piece.
Mm.
And that is something that I'm really expanding for the performance at Off Central. So there's going to be a very greatly expanded multimedia piece projection that goes along with the story. So that's been an evolution as well. And along the journey, not only working with my show, but seeing other solo theater and what really works in other solo theater. That was the thing that really spurred me on to do this sort of expanded piece I'm doing at Off Central. Um, I at one point I sort of added a piece from farther back in my life. I
Mm.
was feeling like there was a place that I really needed to sort of up the pain point, if you
Mm.
will. And so I went back to sort of what were some of my earlier experiences with patriarchy, and why is patriarchy still sort of this character in my life right now. So there's been some deletions of pieces, there's been some additions of pieces, some updates, obviously, as things have changed over time. Um, so, but that's been a real joy for me,
Mm.
because as an actor, when you're doing somebody else's script, you do the script,
You get the
and
script and here
what
you
you
go.
like in the script you like, and what you don't, and you just kind of deal with it. And so as the writer, to be able to adjust the script as I feel like something needs to shift has been really great, and also keeps the performing of it fresh for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that's what I love about this new initiative from Off Central Players, the Think Inside the Box, that this is an incubator, a space for maybe shows that aren't going to be like the next Broadway hit with 25 actors, but are going to help someone take it to a fringe festival or develop it as a piece they can tour and move around. And that's such like a developmental space that we don't have a lot of in Tampa Bay and St. Pete. So I'm so excited that like this is emerging as an opportunity. So maybe talk about how did you get connected with Off Central? I know, like I said, it runs 2 weekends, April 25th to May 3rd, if
Hmm.
the calendar of my brain is right.
Hmm.
So just how did you get connected with Off Central? And, you know, you mentioned larger multimedia expansion, but what else can folks kind of expect from this iteration of it?
So I've known Alan Money for, I was thinking about it the other day, I think it's close to 20 years now. Um, and was actually working with him when he found out that he was going to be taking on this role. Um, and he had seen my show when I did it at Carrollwood, I think, which is was in 2022, I think, 2023. And you know, I had sort of I'd really been looking for a place that I could do it where I could get a really good recording,
Mm-hmm.
because I had a recording from the very first time I did it at Power Stories, but it's changed so much since then. I really wanted an updated recording, and I've seen a number of things at Off Central since they opened, and I love the space. I love a black box. It's my favorite type of theater to perform in. It's my favorite type of theater to see a show in. And it's a beautiful space. And I just thought it would be a really great place for me to get a great recording. And so whenever Alan took over, I said, I'd love to talk to you about how I might be able to do this. And then, you know, he let me know that they were now thinking about this new initiative, Think Inside the Box. And I loved that idea. And I love, you know, I love I love new things, and so I love to be a part of something that's happening for the first time. And so that's how the show has come to be
That's
performed there.
that's exciting.
Yeah. And in terms of what's new, the multimedia piece definitely is big. And this is also, I should say, while I've been living in Pinellas County this whole time I've been doing this, I have yet to perform it in Pinellas County.
So this is a
Like,
homecoming in a
it
lot
is
of
a
ways.
homecoming. I've done it like all these other places, but I haven't done it here. So this will be the first time I'm actually doing it on my home turf, if you will.
That's so exciting.
Yes.
I'm curious about, because this is such like a, I'm going to use the word, and maybe you'll disagree with me, and that's fine. You can tell me. It feels like this is such a therapeutic piece for you in some ways, of like it's helped you work through so many things. What do you hope it does for others in the audience? Because we all experienced, I mean, the pandemic is one of those few shared things we all have, right? And so everyone will be able to identify with this in some way. So what do you hope others take away from it?
You know, one of the failures that I saw working in the school system when the pandemic happened was I felt like there was a failure to truly acknowledge the collective trauma that we
Mm,
experienced. And that's, frankly, it's still causing problems in the schools. Um, and I'm a big believer in naming things,
mm,
the power of naming. And so, first of all, I just hope people can all give themselves permission to recognize that they all went through this collective trauma. And 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 whether we were consciously aware of it or not, I think we're all having these moments of, is this life now? Am I okay with this being life now? Do I really want to go back to the way that I was living before the pandemic? But there haven't really been a lot of spaces to allow people to have that conversation and process that thought. And maybe individual people may have found themselves doing that through therapy or something like that. But again, I really feel like as a society, we haven't really put our arms around this thing that happened. And so I hope that people again can sort of recognize that there may well be things that they still need to process from that experience. But the more important piece to me is that this experience, going through the experience and then writing the show about going through the experience, really revealed for me what it is to be in charge of your own life
Mm,
and how much agency we really do have to make decisions that feed
hmm
our souls, and that we are all indoctrinated with so much programming about who we're supposed to be
mm,
and how it's acceptable to be, and all of that falls along gender lines and racial lines and religious lines and all, and socioeconomic, all, just there's so much stuff, so much story out there about who we are allowed to be and who we're not allowed to be. And really, there's a lot of ways in which we can just thumb our noses at that
hmm
and just say, yeah, that's I interesting opinion, but no thanks, not for me. Um, at the time that I was working on this show, I was also been being trained to become a coach through an organization called Newfield Network, and they really went really deep into this idea of all the ways that this sort of societal programming runs through us. And I had sort of always, I've always prided myself as being somebody who kind of like I thought I had that handled, right?
hmm
Like I was like, oh no, I know how to say no to all that stuff. Um, but I was really surprised to find all the threads
hmm
that were still woven in me, that were still pulling on me, that I wasn't consciously aware of those things. One of the things I talk about in my show is the fact that I discovered that perfectionism is really a handmaiden of the patriarchy.
100%. Yep.
And I was sort of surprised to discover that, but then it made complete and total
Yeah.
sense. And so this really has been a journey for me of figuring out, what do I want to say no to, so that there's room in my life for the things that I want to say yes to.
hmm
And I really hope that as folks watch the show, that they'll see in their own lives, where are the places that I want to say no, that even if I'm not ready, maybe I can get more ready and start to release things that aren't serving me, so that I have the space and the energy to show up as the person that I'm really meant to be. Because humanity, despite everything that we're seeing on display, I really do believe that humanity is beautiful,
Mm,
and that beautiful hearts live inside pretty much everybody, and we're all so unique and have such individuated gifts to bring to the table.
mhm,
And if we're going to heal the world, we really, each of us needs to bring what's ours to bring,
mhm,
and we can't do that unless we are clear on what matters to us, unless we're clear on what our no's are and we're clear on what our yeses are. When we know that, then it allows us to move in the world in a
mm,
way that we can bring the gifts that we have to bring.
mm,
So that's what I hope people will take away from the show.
mhm. I think that's such a beautiful thing you can offer people because, yeah, processing that is a very hard thing, and everyone's doing it in their own ways. And even if you think you're not doing it, you're doing it in your own ways, right?
Yeah.
And I think what I love about this is not someone talking to you. This is not some like academic, sitting in a hall hearing about the effects of the pandemic. This is your personal story. And I think there's so much power in sharing story, and that's how we can collectively move forward with things. So, one, thank you for having the vulnerability to share your story, and I hope everyone gets a chance to experience it. As we start to wrap up, I just want to ask about going back to this, like this homecoming. You've been working on this for years now. What's the hope moving forward? Like, do you have thoughts on what you want this piece to become and to be as it continues to grow and evolve?
One of the things that I'd really like to do is to start to take it to conferences
Mm,
that center, women's issues, and to me, there's a very strong component about tending to your mental health. So I'd like to take it to conferences and basically deliver it sort of like a keynote to inspire folks. I also I'm doing a coaching program myself that I've developed that's called the inner monologue method, that sort of teaches people how to do the same things with the voices in their head that I did with mine. And so I'm looking down the road at, maybe might be like a weekend workshop that starts with my performance and then takes folks through some of the same processes. Because I really do, my main goal for this show is to be a portal for other people
Mm.
to discover what they need to discover in themselves. So
Mm. I mean, that's probably the best way we could end. So thank you so much for coming on today.
yeah,
I'm
thank
going to
you.
encourage everyone, go see My Year of Saying No, April 25th to May 3rd at the Off Central Players, part of their new Inside the Box series. So thank you so much for talking today, and we
Yeah,
can't wait to see the show.
thank you, Avery. My pleasure.
All right. Thank you so much, Janice, for having this conversation. I don't think we can talk about enough the collective trauma that the pandemic was. Everyone experienced it differently, but everyone did experience it. So I really hope that you take something away from this conversation. I hope that you go see Janice's show and experience what that multimedia person to person storytelling event is like. I also want to thank the Off Central players for pioneering and pushing forward this new Inside the Box series. New work development is so important in Tampa Bay, and create an incubator for those smaller productions that are human to human, close personal contact. Those shows that probably would not get picked at larger new play festivals, I think is a really fantastic thing. So this is definitely something you're going to want to follow and check out as it continues to grow and emerge. Please continue to like, follow, subscribe, the Arts Passport and Off Central Players, and check out My Year of Saying No. All right. Thanks so much. Bye.